Okay, recently we've seen a lot of great stuff out of Apple, specifically with their Apple Silicon Mac lineup. And it seems that Apple is, well, they're just getting it. They got great new laptops like the M2 MacBook Air. They have powerhouse but efficient laptops with their MacBook Pro lineup. And even on the desktop lineup, Apple's current product lineup is giving consumers and professionals more options with new product ideas like the Mac Studio, which bridges the gap between a consumer and a pro-level computer. But all of those pale in comparison to what Apple is working on next, and this is kind of a first for Apple. A big screen consumer level laptop at a somewhat more consumer level friendly price point. And as crazy as it sounds, in a world of endless PC laptop options with bigger consumer level laptops, again, this would be a first for Apple, as the company has really never released a laptop bigger than 13.6 inches for the consumer level market. Of course, I am talking about the widely rumored and hotly anticipated new 15-inch version of the M2 MacBook Air, which is rumored for an exciting 2023 release. So in this video, let's go over everything we know so far about the bigger 15-inch M2 MacBook Air, what features we can expect for the device, why it will be so popular, and how it might end up fixing Apple's entry-level MacBook lineup, which is currently a bit of a mess, a bit of a stumble. Like me, I'm stumbling. All right, so let's go over what the 15-inch MacBook Air is, and really it's pretty easy to grasp. Apple just updated the M2 MacBook Air, so I would expect a pretty identical design to the 13-inch model, except with a couple changes that would accommodate this bigger model. First of all, it would be a bigger display, with current specifications from analyst Ross Young being around 15.5 inches, but I actually think it'll be around 15.6 inches, just because that's a little bit easier in the marketing when you're moving up from the M2 MacBook Air, which is 13.6 inches, just to have the bigger version of that be 2 inches bigger, just like they do with the MacBook Pros, right? You can get a 14.2 inch option or a 16.2 inch option. Either way, I don't know why I'm fussing so much on this exact screen size specification. It's going to be a 50-inch laptop. Now, the display should be the same as what is in the current M2 Air, so around 500 nits of screen brightness, the P3 wide color gamut, and an LCD display running at 60 Hz. Basically, again, the same display in the 13-inch M2 MacBook Air, except a larger size scaled up version of that. And that's pretty much what you can expect from most aspects of this MacBook. It should carry the same design as the 13-inch model, only scaled up. However, that does come with some inherent benefits, besides the larger display, which will be better for productivity and entertainment. For example, battery life on this 15-inch version of the M2 MacBook Air should be even better than what is offered on the 13-inch model. Why? Well, it's because Apple has more room inside of the larger laptop to add even more battery capacity, and we can see that Apple does a similar strategy with the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro. The current M2 MacBook Air gets around 18 hours of battery life, according to Apple's claims, and if we expect a similar battery performance jump based on the 14-inch to the 16-inch model. So if a 14-inch MacBook Pro gets 17 hours of battery life and the 16-inch gets 20 hours of battery life, we can make an assumption that the 15-inch model of this Air should get 1 more hour of battery life than the 16-inch model, and that should put it at around 22 hours of battery life. That would, of course, bestow the 15-inch M2 MacBook Air one significant advantage. It would be the best battery life on any of Apple's laptops. Of course, with more room inside of the laptop, there's more advantages too. Just like the bigger 16-inch model, I would expect the 15-inch Air to have better speakers compared to the 13-inch model. And unlike the 16-inch model, which is kind of focused on being bigger and heavier, the 15-inch M2 Air is still going for that consumer-level laptop. And what do consumers want? They want a thin and light laptop. And with the current weight of the M2 Air, it's possible that we could be seeing a relatively lightweight 15-inch laptop. The current M2 Air weighs at 2.7 pounds, while the 14-inch MacBook Pro weighs at 3.5 pounds. And I actually think that this 15-inch M2 Air, despite its bigger screen size, would weigh less than the smaller MacBook Pro, and I would guess the weight would probably be around 3.2 pounds. Now, there's advantages that this 15-inch Air won't have. I don't expect it to adopt any more ports that you would find on the MacBook Pro models. It seems that Apple is pretty consistent with their Apple Silicon strategy so far as ports go, so I would expect the 15-inch model to just have 4 ports. That, of course, would be the MagSafe charging port, 2 Thunderbolt ports, and, of course, a headphone jack. I would also expect it to pretty much have the same performance as the M2 MacBook Air, kind of. You see, what I mean by same performance is that I believe the 15-inch version will just use a standard M2 chip. It won't be using an M2 Pro chip or anything like that, and it should be able to be spec'd out the same as the 13-inch model. The area where I think the 15-inch model might have an advantage is that I think that Apple, by default, will give it an M2 chip with all the GPU cores enabled. So, unlike the 13-inch model, where you could choose to go for an 8-core GPU and save $100 on the machine, I believe the 15-inch model will only offer one M2 specification with the full 10-core GPU. Also, like the 13-inch model, I would not expect the 15-inch model to have a physical fan inside of it, and I would expect identical performance to the 13-inch model when you put the two chips against each other. And honestly, that performance would be more than enough for the target audience that would be in the market for this laptop. All right, so what about pricing and a release date for the 15-inch model? Well, here is where I think Apple has a chance to really fix their MacBook lineup. So it's pretty clear that one of the worst laptops that Apple currently sells is the 13-inch M2 MacBook Pro. This thing still has the same design as the older 2016 generation and still has the touch bar, despite even Apple's more premium MacBook Pros and the new M2 MacBook Air ditching it completely. It even has a smaller display than the 13.6-inch M2 MacBook Air, so on all accounts, it's a laptop that really most people should avoid. With this new 15-inch model, this is the model that Apple could offer as an intermediate model, as a step above the regular MacBook Air, and I think the price could reflect that. The current 13-inch MacBook Air sells for $1,199 for its starting price. It's pretty reasonable to assume that the 15-inch Air will start with probably around the same 256 gigabytes of storage, which could mean that the price of this laptop, if it does come with that 10-core GPU as standard, would probably be around $1,499. So a $1,500 laptop that is right smack in the middle between Apple's lowest cost M1 Air at $1,000 and their more premium MacBook Pros, which start at $2,000. If I'm wrong on the GPU theory, it could mean an even cheaper price point, because when you spec out the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros, you'll find that there's really only a $200 difference to jump up to that bigger screen. So if that's true, we could possibly be looking at a $1,399 15-inch M2 Air at the lowest possible price point in this lineup. As for when you'll be able to get this 15-inch M2 Air, well, if we are to believe the rumors and leaks, you could end up getting this pretty soon, actually, as Mark Gurman believes that Apple should be ready to show this larger size version of the MacBook Air off in the spring. So if Apple holds their usual spring-March event, that is only 3 months away from this product being released. I, on the other hand, I'm a little hesitant with that closer timeline. Like, in theory, it shouldn't be that hard for Apple to make this MacBook. It's very similar to the 13-inch M2 MacBook Air, just with a bigger screen. But listen, Apple has had some trouble in the supply chain, especially in 2022. So I'm kind of thinking that, yeah, of course, the 15-inch MacBook Air has to be mixed up with all of those supply chain woes. So I could see Apple even pushing this 15-inch MacBook Air release back. And I think that could push this model out to the middle of the year with a summer release during or around WWDC 2023. All right, but enough about what I think. Let me know what you think about this new 15-inch MacBook Air in the comments below. Is this the MacBook that you always wanted? Do you want the bigger size screen, but at a cheaper price point? And do you plan on actually buying one? As always, if you found this video informative, please leave me a like. If you want to see more from the channel, well, make sure you're subscribed. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.